Hey again, folks. This is Professor Diffley. This is Philosophy 201. This is Module 6, Lecture Video 3. So we just looked at utilitarianism. Now let's dive into how Kantian ethics and virtue ethics view eating of animals. So Kant on human, animals, and direct duty. So this is just an overview on this. According to Kant, humans are a being altogether different in rank. I'm reading a quote from this is humans are a being altogether different in rank and dignity from things such as irrational animals, so with which one may deal and dispose at one's discretion. So what is he saying here? Humans are a higher life form compared to the rest of the animal kingdom, because here, and this is really the thing, he says they're irrational animals, so it's really about the ability to think and reason he's focusing on there. So, because we are a higher life form, so this is more of the secular argument, the dominion one I was looking at before, but there's more to it here, which I told you to avoid, but there's more to Kant's argument. So he's saying, yeah, we can do whatever we want with the animals at our discretion, right? Because we have no direct duty to animals. So what does that mean there? Well, we only have direct duties to other human beings, right? So if you look at this, and again, look in the notes here, what is it? Because Eden does not fall, it does not run afoul of the two formulations of the categorical imperative, right? Eating animals can become a universal law because there's nothing really wrong with this, right? Of universalizing this action. If you say you can eat non-human animals, well, if you can do it, can everybody else do it? Yes, that's fine. But, it's not really about treating another person. That's as a means to an end, right? So that's one of the big things Kant has. It's even the practical imperative that you should not treat others as an end in themselves. So, but he's only talking about humans. So for animals, we don't have those direct duties. But you could argue we may have indirect duties to animals. So what do we mean by that? Again, look in the notes for here, but he says really we should treat them with concern, care and concern, animals. So even though he says we can dispose of them at our discretion, he also thinks we need to be kind to them. Why? And this is how it's indirect. Because, again, I want to read the quote here. That's why I pulled this up. Says Kant said of a person that if a person is not to stifle his human feelings, he must practice kindness towards animals. For he who is cruel to animals becomes hard also in his dealings with men. So what the argument here is that if people are, abusing animals, perform animal cruelty, murdering, small animals when they're young, there's a good bet that they're going to grow up and think this is okay to do to humans, right? So really what he's talking about there is we don't needlessly be cruel to animals. And if you are, what it's going to do is become, people are going to become, unfortunately, cruel to other humans as well. At least that may be where their approach to life is. So indirectly, this is how it's indirect, is we should be kind to animals because if we're not, it could lead us to be cruel towards humans, right? So that's how it's indirect, right? The way we treat animals may indirectly impact how we treat other human beings there. So again, it would seem straightforward that Kant says that we don't have a duty to animals, so we can eat them, but he also puts up caveats in there. And again, in your paper, you should be looking at those arguments and analyzing them, critiquing them, or applying them to your whatever you fell on this view here that it's okay to eat animals, it's not okay to eat animals. So what about virtue ethics? Well, this is a problem with virtue ethics. It's not really that helpful for this in ways. It's not, and what do I mean by helpful? It doesn't really give us clear answers, right? So it seems like Kant says, yes, it's okay to eat animals, but, we need to make sure we're nice to them, and what it says in utilitarianism. Virtue ethics, though, is agent-centered. It's all about what a virtuous person would do. So it's not always the most helpful in a question about, this broad-ranging topic. It's, it's not really well suited to absolute answers, right? Because Remember, it's about finding that golden mean, right, between the excesses, the vice of excess or deficiency, right? Example would be, what is it to be brave? You see someone being held up at gunpoint. You rush in. What should you do in that situation? Is the brave and the, wise thing to do to run in and put yourself in front of the gun? I mean, we're assuming you don't have a gun, you can't disarm them. Well, would you accomplish, right? That was just, you were overconfident and it was foolish. It was an excess there because now you either both got robbed and both got shot. The difference is, what's another option? Oh, another option is just run away. And so that would be a deficiency, right, of lack of courage, being cowardly. So what's the other option? What's the middle ground here? Call the cops, call someone who can, actually put a stop to things, right? So you got to look at the situation and figure that out. But again, it's not really, absolute answers. So it is not possible. But here's one thing that we do know. Vegetarianism is not a virtue in and of itself. It's a way of life rather than a character trait, right? So just because you're a vegetarian doesn't make you virtuous on the basis of being a vegetarian. That's just a way of life that you've chosen. It's not a character trait or disposition, right? Which is what we're looking at, right? There's nothing about being a vegetarian that makes you more just or more brave or courageous. You get what I'm saying on this? It's about that. That's a lifestyle choice. We're looking at what the character traits are, a disposition. So just because you're vegetarianism into that doesn't make it virtue in and of itself. So what questions do we want to ask here? In what circumstances and at what times would a disposition to refrain from eating meat be virtuous? And when would such a disposition might be labeled as a vice of excess or deficiency? Excuse me. So you see in the paper, the assignment question I have there, is there, let's actually go look at it because this is a good connection between these two there. So here's where we're on that. Let me get to the class. So that's what I wanted there. So the question is, should be on limits on when and in what circumstances it is permissible to consume animals. So that is what connects to this here. So when you're looking at this question, this topic, that part of the essay, you really want to be looking at the virtue ethics, what's in the book, what's in the next slides, that sort of thing, about when it might be possible. So again, let's look at these next slide here, because this gives you sort of an example of this. When could eating an animal be virtuous or a vice of excess or a deficiency? And that's a typo there instead of N, but you get the point. So let's go with one. Option A here. Just example A. If you knew that animal was treated poorly and chose to eat it. So right. So you know this, and we agree that we should treat the animals kindly. You knew it was true, and then you decided to eat it. So is that permissible? Does that is that a character trait of virtue? And if you look in the notes here, I give you some arguments here. Responses to this. Your willingness to ignore this information, the argument would be that it's not really a virtue because, we're supposed to have a virtuous mean of compassion right here by just saying, I don't care if the animal was treated poorly. It's just an animal. Who cares? Really is not, again, we're looking at a whole of being, whole of life here. And so if you're willing to overlook this, it could be a problem elsewhere. So the spirit of life, making dietary decisions. Really, these things do matter, right? It's a part of the ethics is the choices we make, right? And that includes in what we eat and how we shop. If you're willingly ignorant of this information, it'd be a vice of deficiency. Why? Because you're choosing to be ignorant and not learn about how things are, how the animals were made and stuff like that. So you're not doing your duty to look into that. So let's look at question B here. All right, so the animal's treated, and there's a little twist on it. The animal's treated poorly, but by eating the animal, it will benefit the health of your children, right? So you can give it to them. And there's no other comparable or affordable food options, right? So is it now permissible to eat that animal. Above, it wasn't in option in example A, it wasn't. But is it so in choice B? Arguably so, right? If you look at here, it could be virtuous for the reason of the eating animal, benefiting your children. It's prudent. It's compassion. You're looking after them. You could also argue, right? Your kids are going to starve. You've made them vegetarians. They're going to starve. Only thing you can get is animal meat. But what should you do there? Stubbornly sticking to vegetarianism and letting your children starve. Do you really think that's virtuous? I mean, right? You get where I'm going with that. So this is, you need a clear-headed recognition of the needs of your child there, right? So here down in the notes, I also give you some other scenarios to consider. Who are the virtuous role models from whom we could learn when it comes to eating animals, right? That's what virtue theory is about, right? Virtue ethics is emulating virtuous people. So who would be our virtuous role models here? TV chefs, a vegetarian campaigner. What I mean by that, a campaigner is, an advocate for it. Is Peter Singer the person you're looking at? Is there someone else? So, we need to find and identify someone and then use them as a base there. And so you should think about that. But, here's an interesting question. What about, you ever seen the show Running Wild with Bear Grylls? Where he has celebrities and they dropped off in the wild and they got to survive with just what they have on their back and what they can catch and kill. So, he's often dropped into these areas but remember, this is for our entertainment. It's not like he's actually stranded in the wilderness and can only survive by killing animals for food. Well, is that virtuous or is that a vice? Well, it's a compelling question here because he didn't need to go out there and be starving. He chose to do it. He's getting paid to do it, and we're watching it. So it's for our entertainment. So is that really a virtuous thing, or is there really a vice there, right? He's killing these animals that he didn't need to because he put himself in the situation for a TV show. So, think about that. That's a intriguing question here on that. So, like I said, the PowerPoint is brief. That's really it for this PowerPoint. So there's only 3 lecture videos here. These are really meant to give you an overview and to start thinking about this and then applying it to your position paper. So, again, as always, you have any questions, let me know. Reach out by email. We can talk via email or set up a Zoom chat meeting. But again, don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got questions. All right, thanks, folks.